The horrors of the Riddle House. The sun beat down on the Riddle House, its faded paint peeling like the skin of a snake shedding its old life. It stood there, an ominous presence amidst the palm trees, a relic of a bygone era where death was a constant guest. We were a group of college students, young and foolish, renting it for the summer, drawn to its macabre history and cheap rent. The first night was quiet, a deceptive lull before the storm. We joked and laughed, oblivious to the darkness lurking in the shadows. It began subtly, a cold draft in the hallway, a creaking floorboard where no one stood. Then the whispers started, soft and insidious, slithering into our dreams, planting seeds of fear. The attic, where Joseph, the troubled spirit, had met his end, was the epicenter of the haunting. One night I ventured up there armed with nothing but a flashlight and a foolish sense of bravery. The air was thick, heavy with a palpable sense of dread. A noose hung from the rafters, a chilling reminder of Joseph's tragic fate. Suddenly the flashlight flickered, casting long, dancing shadows on the walls. The whispers grew louder, morphing into a guttural growl. A cold hand brushed my shoulder and I spun around, heart pounding in my chest. There was nothing there, but the air crackled with an unseen energy. I fled the attic, slamming the door behind me, but it was too late. The haunting had begun in earnest, and Joseph was determined to drive us out, one terrifying encounter at a time. We were trapped in a house of horrors, and the only way out was to face the malevolent spirit head-on. The nights that followed were a relentless onslaught of terror. Doors slammed shut on their own, furniture moved inexplicably, and disembodied voices echoed through the halls. One of our group, Sarah, woke up screaming one night, her sheets stained with blood. There were no wounds on her body, but the fear in her eyes was all too real. Joseph's presence grew stronger with each passing day, his malevolence seeping into every corner of the house. We tried to reason with him, to understand his pain, but he was beyond reason, consumed by a rage that transcended death. One evening we gathered in the living room, desperation clinging to us like a shroud. We decided to hold a séance, a desperate attempt to communicate with Joseph and find a way to appease him. The air crackled with anticipation as we sat in a circle, hands clasped, chanting ancient incantations. Suddenly the room plunged into darkness. A bone-chilling cold swept through us, and the air grew thick with the stench of decay. A guttural voice filled the room, echoing from every corner. "Leave!" it hissed, "or suffer the consequences!" A blood-curdling scream pierced the darkness. The lights flickered back on, revealing a horrifying sight. Mark, one of our group, was levitating in mid-air, his body contorted in an unnatural position. His eyes bulged from their sockets, and his face was a mask of pure terror. We watched in horror as Mark's body slammed against the ceiling, then crashed to the floor with a sickening thud. He lay there, motionless, his life extinguished in a brutal display of Joseph's power. The seance had backfired, unleashing a fury we couldn't control. We were no longer just witnesses to the haunting. We were its victims. And Joseph was the puppeteer, pulling the strings of our fear. The Horrors of the Riddle House. Part 3. Mark's death shattered any remaining illusion of safety. We were living in a nightmare, hunted by a malevolent entity that thrived on our fear. The once vibrant group of friends was now a collection of frayed nerves, each of us teetering on the edge of sanity. Sleep became a luxury we couldn't afford. Every creak, every whisper sent shivers down our spines. We huddled together in the living room, seeking solace in each other's company, but even then, we weren't safe. One night, as we sat around the fireplace, the flames suddenly flared up, casting grotesque shadows on the walls. A guttural laughter echoed through the room, and the temperature plummeted. We huddled closer, our breath fogging in the frigid air. Then the furniture started to move, sliding across the floor as if propelled by an unseen force. A heavy armchair hurtled towards Emily, pinning her against the wall. Her screams filled the room as we struggled to free her, but the chair wouldn't budge. Just as suddenly as it started, the chaos stopped. The armchair slid back to its original position, leaving Emily bruised and shaken. We looked at each other, our faces etched with terror. Joseph was toying with us, reveling in our helplessness. We knew we couldn't stay in the Riddle House any longer. We had to escape, to break free from Joseph's clutches before he claimed another victim. But how could we leave when the house itself seemed to be working against us? In the dead of night, we packed our belongings, our movements swift and silent. We tiptoed towards the front door, our hearts pounding in our chests. But as we reached for the doorknob, it turned icy cold, and a malevolent laughter echoed through the house. The door wouldn't open. We were trapped, prisoners in a house of horrors, at the mercy of a vengeful spirit. Panic gnawed at us as we realized the futility of our escape attempt. Joseph had sealed us in, trapping us in his domain of terror. Desperation fueled a frantic search for another way out, but every window was jammed shut, every exit blocked by an unseen force. Exhausted and terrified, we retreated to the living room, huddling together for warmth and comfort. The house seemed to pulsate with Joseph's malevolence, the walls closing in on us, suffocating us with dread. A sense of hopelessness settled over us, a heavy blanket of despair. We were trapped, at the mercy of a vengeful spirit, and there seemed to be no escape. Some of us succumbed to tears, others to a numb acceptance of our fate. But amidst the despair, a flicker of defiance ignited in me. I refused to let Joseph win, to let him break our spirits. I rallied the others, reminding them of our strength, our resilience. We decided to fight back. We scoured the house for anything that could help us understand Joseph, to find a way to appease him, or, at the very least, to protect ourselves. We found old journals, letters, and photographs, piecing together the fragments of his tragic life. Joseph had been a troubled soul, ostracized and misunderstood. His death had been a cry for help, a desperate attempt to escape the torment of his existence. Understanding his pain didn't diminish his malevolence, but it gave us a glimmer of hope. Armed with this newfound knowledge, we devised a plan. We would confront Joseph not with fear, but with empathy. We would acknowledge his pain, his anger, and offer him the peace he had been denied in life. It was a risky plan, a desperate gamble, but it was our only hope. We gathered in the attic, the place where Joseph's torment had begun and ended. The air crackled with anticipation as we waited for him to appear. The attic was eerily silent, the only sound the creaking of the old house settling around us. We stood in a circle, hands clasped, our collective fear a palpable presence in the room. Then a cold wind swept through the attic and the temperature plummeted. The noose hanging from the rafters swayed gently as if beckoned by an unseen force. A guttural growl echoed through the room and the air crackled with an unseen energy. The shadows danced on the walls, morphing into grotesque shapes that seemed to mock our fear. We braced ourselves, our hearts pounding in our chests. Suddenly, a figure materialized in the center of the circle. It was Joseph, his spectral form shimmering in the dim light. His eyes burned with an otherworldly intensity, and his face was contorted in a mask of rage and sorrow. "Leave," he hissed, his voice a chilling whisper that sent shivers down our spines. "This is my house, my domain. You are not welcome here." We stood our ground, our resolve unwavering. I stepped forward, my voice trembling slightly but filled with conviction. "Joseph," I said, "we understand your pain. We know you suffered in life, and we acknowledge your anger, but we are not your enemies. We want to help you find peace." Joseph's spectral form flickered, his anger momentarily replaced by a flicker of confusion. He looked at us, his gaze piercing through our souls. "Peace?" he echoed, his voice laced with bitterness. "There is no peace for me. Only torment, only darkness." "We can help you," I insisted. "We can offer you understanding, compassion. We can help you find the peace you crave." Joseph's eyes narrowed, and a cruel smile twisted his lips. "You think you can control me? You think you can appease me with your empty words?" He lunged at us, his spectral form a whirlwind of rage. The air crackled with energy and the room shook violently. We scattered, barely dodging his attacks. Fear gripped us once again, threatening to shatter our resolve. But we wouldn't give up. We had come too far, fought too hard to surrender now. We had to find a way to reach Joseph, to break through the darkness that consumed him. The attic became a battleground, a chaotic dance of fear and desperation. Joseph's attacks were relentless, his spectral form a blur as he darted among us, his touch leaving a trail of icy cold. We fought back, using anything we could find as weapons, old furniture, books, even our own fists. But our physical attacks were useless against his spectral form. He would simply phase through us, his touch leaving us momentarily paralyzed with fear. We were outmatched, overpowered, and the realization filled us with a sense of dread. As Joseph lunged at me, his hand outstretched, I closed my eyes, bracing for the inevitable. But instead of the icy touch I expected, I felt a warmth, a sense of calm washing over me. I opened my eyes to see Sarah standing in front of me, her arms outstretched, a shimmering light emanating from her body. Joseph recoiled, his spectral form flickering as if in pain. "Stop this, Joseph," Sarah said, her voice firm and unwavering. "We are not your enemies. We want to help you." Joseph snarled, his rage momentarily subdued by Sarah's presence. "Help me? You can't help me. I am beyond help." "No, you're not," Sarah insisted. "You are trapped in your pain, your anger. But there is another way, Joseph. There is peace. There is light." Sarah's words seemed to resonate with Joseph, his spectral form flickering between rage and confusion. He looked at her, his eyes searching for something. A glimmer of hope, perhaps, in the depths of his despair. "Peace?" he echoed, his voice a mere whisper. "Is there truly peace for me?" "Yes, Joseph," Sarah said, her voice filled with compassion. "There is peace. But you have to let go of your anger, your pain. You have to forgive." Joseph hesitated, his spectral form trembling. The battle raged within him, a struggle between the darkness that consumed him and the possibility of light. The attic fell silent, the only sound the soft crackle of the fireplace downstairs. We watched, holding our breath as Joseph made his choice. A tear, spectral and shimmering, rolled down Joseph's translucent cheek. The sight, both eerie and heart-wrenching, held us captive. A sob, choked and raw, echoed through the attic, shattering the silence. "I am so tired." Joseph's voice, once a chilling hiss, was now filled with an aching sorrow. "So tired of the anger, the darkness." Sarah stepped closer, her light seeming to pulse with warmth. "Let it go, Joseph," she urged gently. "Let go of the pain. Find peace." Joseph's form wavered, his spectral body growing fainter, as if the very essence of his being was unraveling. He looked at us, his gaze lingering on each face, a silent farewell. Then, with a final, shuddering breath, he vanished. The attic was silent once more, but the oppressive weight that had hung over us for weeks was gone. The air felt lighter, cleaner, as if the darkness had finally lifted. We looked at each other, relief and disbelief mingling in our eyes. Had we truly succeeded? Had we finally freed Joseph from his torment? As we descended the stairs, the house felt different. The creaking floorboards, the whispering voices, the icy drafts, all were gone. The Riddle House, once a vessel of terror, was now just an old, empty house. We left that night, our hearts heavy with the memory of Mark, but also filled with a sense of closure. We had faced our fears, confronted the darkness, and emerged victorious. The scars of our ordeal would remain, but we had also gained a strength, a resilience, that we never knew we possessed. The horrors of the Riddle House had come to an end, but the lessons we learned there would stay with us forever. We had witnessed the destructive power of pain and anger, but also the transformative power of empathy and forgiveness. And in the end, that was the greatest victory of all. The weeks that followed were a blur of healing and recovery. We returned to our normal lives, trying to put the horrors of the Riddle House behind us. But the memories lingered, haunting our dreams, reminding us of the fragility of life and the enduring power of the human spirit. Sarah, who had been instrumental in freeing Joseph, became a beacon of strength for us. She had faced the darkness head-on, her courage and compassion shining through even in the face of terror. We were in awe of her, grateful for her unwavering spirit that had guided us through the ordeal. As time passed, the scars began to fade, both physical and emotional. We laughed again, we dreamed again, we dared to hope again. Life in its relentless way moved on. But one question remained, a nagging doubt that refused to be silenced. Had we truly freed Joseph? Or had we merely shifted his torment, his restless spirit, to another plane of existence? The thought sent a shiver down my spine, a chilling reminder that the darkness we had encountered in the Riddle House was not easily vanquished. It lurked in the shadows, waiting for an opportunity to resurface, to claim new victims. One night, as I lay in bed, unable to sleep, I heard a soft whisper, a familiar voice that sent a chill down my spine. "Thank you," it said, the words barely audible but filled with a profound sense of peace. I sat up, my heart pounding in my chest. The room was empty, but the voice lingered in the air, a gentle echo of a tormented soul finally finding rest. I closed my eyes, a sense of calm washing over me. Perhaps we had truly freed Joseph after all. Perhaps his spirit had finally found the peace it had been denied in life. But deep down, a part of me knew that the darkness was never truly gone. It lurked in the corners of our minds, a reminder of the horrors we had faced and the resilience we had found. The Riddle House may have been just an old, empty house now, but its legacy of terror would live on, a chilling testament to the enduring power of the human spirit, both in life and in death. Life resumed its rhythm, the terrors of the Riddle House fading into a distant memory. We graduated, pursued careers, and built families, the bonds forged in that crucible of fear holding us together. Yet the Riddle House remained a silent specter in our lives, a shared experience that bound us in a way no one else could understand. Years later, a reunion brought us back to the town where it all began. We stood before the Riddle House, its facade now freshly painted, its dark past seemingly buried beneath a veneer of normalcy. A pang of nostalgia mixed with a lingering unease washed over us. "Do you think it's truly over?" Emily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. We exchanged glances, a silent acknowledgement of the unspoken question that haunted us all. Had we truly vanquished the darkness, or had we merely lulled it into a temporary slumber? Curiosity, a morbid fascination with the past, drew us inside. The house was unrecognizable, its interior renovated and modernized. The attic, once the epicenter of Joseph's torment, was now a bright, airy space, the noose replaced by a skylight that bathed the room in sunlight. Yet despite the changes, a subtle unease lingered in the air. We couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched, that unseen eyes followed our every move. A cold draft swept through the house, and the hairs on the back of our necks stood on end. As we gathered in the living room, the same room where we had held the ill-fated seance, a sense of dread settled over us. The laughter, the conversation died down, replaced by an oppressive silence. Suddenly the lights flickered, plunging the room into darkness. A bone-chilling cold swept through us, and the familiar stench of decay filled the air. A guttural growl echoed through the house, sending shivers down our spines. We huddled together, our fear reigniting the memories of that terrifying summer. The darkness seemed to pulsate around us, a malevolent presence closing in. Then a voice, cold and menacing, filled the room. "You thought you could escape me," it hissed. "You thought you could bury the past. But the darkness never truly dies. It merely waits, biding its time, until it can rise again." The voice was not Joseph's. It was deeper, more sinister, a chilling echo of an ancient evil. We were not alone in the Riddle House. Something else, something far more powerful and malevolent, had awakened, and we were its prey. A primal terror gripped us as we realized the true extent of our predicament. We were not merely facing the remnants of Joseph's torment, but a far more ancient and powerful evil that had been lying dormant within the Riddle House. The darkness coalesced, taking shape before our eyes. A towering figure emerged from the shadows, its form shrouded in a swirling vortex of black mist. Its eyes, burning with an unholy light, fixed upon us, and a cruel smile twisted its spectral lips. "Foolish mortals," it boomed, its voice reverberating through the house. "You dared to disturb my slumber. Now you shall pay the price." The entity lunged at us, its spectral claws outstretched. We scattered, our screams echoing through the house. But there was nowhere to hide, no escape from its relentless pursuit. Just as all hope seemed lost, a blinding light filled the room. A figure stepped out of the radiance, its form shimmering with an ethereal glow. It was Sarah, her eyes blazing with a power that dwarfed even the darkness that surrounded us. "Leave them alone," she commanded, her voice echoing with an authority that made even the ancient evil recoil. "They are under my protection." The entity snarled, its form writhing in frustration. "You dare defy me, mortal?" "I am not a mere mortal," Sarah declared, her voice resonating with power. "I am the guardian of this house, the protector of those who seek refuge within its walls." A battle of wills ensued, a clash of light and darkness that shook the very foundations of the Riddle House. The air crackled with energy, and the walls trembled as the two forces collided. We watched in awe as Sarah fought back, her light a beacon of hope in the face of overwhelming darkness. She wielded her power with precision, her every move imbued with a strength and grace that belied her human form. The entity, caught off guard by Sarah's unexpected resistance, struggled to maintain its hold. Its form flickered, its power waning as Sarah's light grew stronger. With a final triumphant cry, Sarah unleashed a surge of energy that engulfed the entity, shattering its form into a million fragments of darkness. The house shook violently, and then silence. The lights flickered back on, revealing a scene of utter devastation. The furniture was overturned, the walls cracked, and the air hung heavy with the remnants of the battle. But the darkness was gone, replaced by a sense of peace that permeated the house. We looked at Sarah, our hearts filled with gratitude and awe. She had saved us, not just from the entity, but from the lingering darkness that had haunted the Riddle House for centuries. As we stepped out into the cool night air, we left the Riddle House behind, its past finally laid to rest. We had faced the horrors, confronted our fears, and emerged stronger, more resilient. And in the end, that was the greatest victory of all.